It's a Golden Gate life. Let's flash back a bit. When I was working for Mindscape as Director of Software Development, overseeing intelligent games, on games like Chessmaster, and when my divorce was closing, I was living alone in my 3,000 square foot house in Petaluma, California. My office was downstairs and my bedroom upstairs. That is important because, well, I had an accident, a very big accident. What accident, you might ask? Well, I was driving to the Bay Area from Petaluma, passing through what was known then as the Rainbow Tunnel, named that because of an arc of rainbow colors painted around its entrances. Well, when I saw the cars around a turn just outside the tunnel exit were all slowing very quickly. Their brake lights were intermittently on and off, red. I was driving maybe 45 miles per hour in a 55 mile per hour zone. I slowed very quickly myself to 35 miles an hour in preparation for what might be more traffic ahead, and I might have to stop more quickly. But as I rounded the turn, I could see the slowing cars were virtually at a stop, as they could be seen across the Golden Gate Bridge and beyond, all stopped. Well, I had a choice. I could swerve left or right between the cars and hope not to hit them. Maybe I could slow down safely. Or I could just try and stop as fast as possible and hope I did not strike the car in front of me. And if I did not, the car behind me was able to stop as well and not run right over me. Well, no option seemed very good. So I just went for the brake as fast as possible, control myself so I don't strike the car in front of me. Well, I did that, but the car behind me was not going to stop in time. He was going to hit me. The cars ahead on either side were still swerving a bit. They weren't stopped. They were fishtailing, so if I went in, I would likely be struck, smashed in between the cars. I was in trouble. The front of my Harley clone look-alike Yamaha motorcycle hit the rear of the front car in front of me as I tried to avoid being hit by the car behind me. However, the front wheel of my motorcycle wedged into the bumper of the car. It threw the motorcycle up into the air. I then went forward into its windshield fairing, which knocked me off the motorcycle and back down onto the ground. However, the motorcycle had flown up into the air, rose, did a pirouette, and then crashed down on top of me. I was wearing Kevlar-laced leather jacket and gloves, steel-toed boots, and a full-faced helmet. But it was not enough. The clutch lever on the motorcycle had sheared on impact with the pavement and bounced. It became a harpoon that cut through my Kevlar jacket. My left foot was wedged in the rear wheel sprocket and chain of the motorcycle, dislocating my toes through the steel-toed boots. The doctor said I would have lost my toes entirely if I did not have steel-toed boots. They said it was actually a miracle that the clutch did not pierce me and only the jacket. My helmet was cracked in 2 places, my face shield broken, and 13 of my teeth were fractured, with blood everywhere all over the ground, on my visor, face, and over my jacket. My left leg hurt and burned insanely, as did my upper right arm and my right hand. I had suffered fractures in my arm and leg. My hand was severely sprained, but it was not broken. Another miracle, the doctors would declare. The paramedics, when they cut off my jacket, had joked, "It must have been a nice jacket for you, but the jaws of life are nicer. Sorry for cutting up your jacket, but your life depended on it." Yeah, they cut my jacket off. They cut most of my clothes off. They inserted me into a head and body locked stretcher. They had no idea if I had internal or head injuries. The lead paramedic leaned over to me as my blood flowed all over. "Hey buddy, do you have insurance? And what kind is it? HMO? PPO? What?" I could barely think straight. I muttered, PPO. Awesome, he exclaimed. That's good insurance. We can go to Marin. We can skip SF General. Apparently, San Francisco General had an awful reputation as a low-quality meat treatment facility, whereas Marin Hospital was considered high quality for well-to-do people, a nice treatment center. I guess it was a good thing that I was going to go to Marin. There is no way that I could have imagined the insanity of my admission to Marin Hospital. First, I was greeted by a hospital psychiatrist who asked if I wanted to crash my motorcycle. Of course, I did not want to have an accident or crash my motorcycle. What an absurd question. Well, no problem, the psychiatrist left, I suppose satisfied with the answer. Second, a lawyer came to me and decreed that I had been abused by a faulty windshield fairing on the motorcycle, and the brakes could have been faulty, and the tunnel signage should have been better. And he said he could identify, he was confident, more problems given the chance. Well, he then assured me that I had a lot of money coming to me if he would just be allowed to represent me. Well, I had integrity, and I was not going to employ an ambulance-chasing attorney. It's amazing that the stereotypes were real with accident-chasing lawyers. As an aside, it was probably a mistake that I did not pursue that, but that's something to be talked about in the future. And then third, 3 doctors visited me in my hospital room. Doctors Looney, Payne, and Bones. I know that sounds crazy. Their names were Looney, Payne, and Bones. Dr. Looney, Dr. Payne, and Dr. Bones. Only in my life could I get 3 doctors on my potential deathbed with those names. It was insanity. Ironically, Dr. Looney, not Dr. Bones, told me about my fractured bones and teeth. They would treat my injuries, but I would need to see a dentist for my fractured teeth. Dr. Looney told me that my upper right arm was fractured just under my rotator, and so it may not heal properly without a brace. But to surgically insert a brace would be, well, surgery, and it required that they fully break the fractured bone to properly mend it and place it. I was not inclined to pursue Looney's idea of breaking my arm further and cutting it open to bolt a metal plate inside versus just seeing if I healed correctly on my own, and if not, doing the nightmare treatment of breaking it and doing everything he already recommended. Dr. Payne wanted to take blood tests to see if I had internal injuries, but I was in too much pain to endure more suffering. I said, no, I don't want anything. The doctors left, accepting my decision. However, a parade of nurses and medical assistants flowed through afterwards, asking me why I would not get blood tests, and stressed if something was injured inside, I could die. Fine, I lamented and agreed. They did their blood tests and found no evidence of internal injuries. Now, I must say, in recognition of my life's hell difficulty, when they wheeled me into radiology to x-ray my injuries, the radiology technician used bags of ice to prop up my swollen and fractured limbs. As he raised a bag to place near my neck, the bag of ice broke open, and ice fell all over my face, my neck, and my body. With my head clamped in a harness, I could not move a millimeter. Ice cubes lay in my eye sockets, and I could not move them or dare open my eyes. The technician was dismayed. He exclaimed, "I have never seen that happen in my 24 years as a radiologist. I'm so sorry." He picked the ice cubes from my eyes and neck and then body. He cleaned them up from the harness, bed, and floor. Even when I do nothing at all, am strapped down, bad things still happened to me. Merry Christmas to me. Yes, I crashed on Christmas Eve, and I had spent the night in the hospital. I would spend the next week in the hospital before being released. As I laid in that hospital bed on Christmas Day, my ex-wife visited my room with my 2 toddler daughters, Brooke at 3 years old and Amanda at 5 years old. Amanda looked on with worry and tears. She had never seen her father incapacitated, much less laid up in a hospital bed with arm and foot suspended and tubes running in his arms and through his nose. Machines beeped and blipped and pumped. She did not know what to say or do. She just watched with worry. Brooke, 3 years old, asked, "Are you going to die, Daddy?" She did not seem particularly teary-eyed or worried as Amanda did, but she was asking possibly the most prudent question. Of course, I answered, "No, I am fine." I thought of Don Quixote's deathbed moment. Not well? What is illness to the body of a knight-errant? What wound matters? For each time he falls, he shall rise again, and woe to the wicked. And therefore, no, I was fine. Brooke took my words of comfort as truth, and seemed okay with things. My ex-wife did not want to stay around and had fulfilled her duty of bringing my children to my potential deathbed. I was glad to see my daughters. I did not know if I would die. I did not expect it would happen, but of course you never know, right? They left within an hour of visiting. I did not see them again for over a month, not until I could transport and care for myself. Their mother focused on fulfilling her obligations to me regarding my children, but she never seemed to want me to truly be in their lives, though she very much wanted the money that I would pay. I would eventually label myself Daddy ATM in response to the relentless need of money without any apparent spend on my children. California made mothers the gods of children with all rights, and fathers merely had prayers for the children without any rights. During a major conflict, I pursued full legal custody of my children, but California refused to even entertain my arguments because I was then living outside of the state of California, where they asserted that I had no standing, no legal rights over my own children. Even worse, I was living in Canada, working with Electronic Arts in Canada at that time. What does that mean? It means international residence defines parental rights as null and void. 0 rights. That's right. Because I lived outside of the US of A, I therefore had no legal rights over my own children, even though I was a US citizen. With my children gone, and my being alone in the hospital room on Christmas Day, I turned the little TV suspended high on the hospital far wall with its remote on. It's a Wonderful Life, the movie, was playing. It was a story of a man that questioned his worth and his value in life and was made by an angel to see how the world might have been had he never been born to it. The angel shows him how much of a difference he made on others and that his life was important. It felt poetic for me to be laying there in the hospital just shy of 4:30 p.m. in the afternoon on Christmas Day in excruciating pain and wondering how someone who strove his entire life to be good, righteous, could be so beaten and injured for no reason at all, just random smite from God or the devil. Just after 4:30 p.m., I heard beep, beep, beep next to me. It began chirping, and it seemed to grow louder and louder and longer. Beep, beep, beep. I looked over and saw the heart monitor flatlined. It appeared that my heart stopped. Well, it could have just been disconnected, of course. It was weird. I did not feel anything. And then it hit me. I was getting weak, lightheaded, then dizzy. I could barely raise my arm. 2 nurses charged into the room. One inserted a syringe into my IV, as the other was charging a defibrillator, presumably to revive my heart. Oh my gosh, I was dying? Would Brooke's question be proven yes, I was dying after all? Was I mistaken thinking that it wasn't going to happen? That I would die? Thankfully, the injection kick-started my heart. It resumed. Beep, beep, beep. I asked, what happened? Did my heart stop? Did I have a heart attack? We cannot say anything, Mr. Seaborn. You are okay. The doctor will see you and explain things to you later, replied the IV nurse. The doctor did show up the next day. I had to go the entire night wondering what happened and if it would happen again. And would it happen when I was asleep? Would I just not wake up? It was incredibly insensitive and inconsiderate, if not outright cruel, to leave me wondering all night. When the doctor appeared, he explained that I did not have a heart attack, but rather experienced what he called a heart seizure that resulted from physical shock. He said that it was common for roadside injuries to result in death from shock. Apparently, some people's brains decide that injuries are just too great to survive, and so they direct the body to check out, to prevent unnecessary suffering, because after all, you were going to die anyway. The doctor alleged, reassuring me that I should not have any long-term effects from the heart seizure, and that I would unlikely experience another incident now that I was out of the woods. Perhaps God was trying to tell me something. Maybe things were not as bleak or dire as they literally felt with my bruised, broken, bashed body. I was going through a lot of turmoil at that time. Divorce, Mindscape going and converting to distance learning from games, Karma Entertainment fighting for its very survival with a flaky subcontractor, and the stress of knowing a dozen families depended on me for their livelihoods. But I was pulling it off and making it successful despite the toll that it was taking on me. I reflected on the irony of my questioning my own life's value as It's a Wonderful Life, the movie, played on my hospital room's suspended television, and then for my heart to stop. It made clear that I could have died, and my daughters showed me how much they needed me. At least my income, no matter what. What would things be like without me? Perhaps it would be terrible. Indeed, I think it would be terrible. I'm confident it would be. A friend of mine, Doug Brandon, told me that I was a lot like Apostle Paul, that I suffered an incurable chronic cough that made me a pariah, even with my ex-wife. And I suffered constant abuse and suffering despite my faith. But Apostle Paul kept his faith no matter how hurt or beaten down he was. Doug said that I impressed him with my remarkable ability to snap back against insanely oppressive and destructive experiences. He suggested, in a way, I might be like a modern-day Apostle Paul. As a point of insight, I have tried to research Paul the Apostle, and I have never found the narrative that Doug told me of him. However, Paul's journeys would not preclude what Doug described of him either, and since Doug grew up attending religious Catholic school, I presume that he must know much more than I did about Apostle Paul. In any case, it was empowering, the story from Doug, and it helped me get through some otherwise very challenging and defeating times. It's imperative to hold on to your faith, spirit, ideas and ideologies, your values, when your body is beaten badly. Empowering stories of overcoming challenges and of helping others, like those of Apostle Paul and my daughters needing me. They help us get through otherwise soul-crushing experiences and times.